You have to get to 0.21 Bitcoin as soon as possible. Recently, I have made a few videos, about one maybe every month, talking about why you need to buy a certain amount of Bitcoin, $1,000 of Bitcoin, 0.002 Bitcoin, 0.21 Bitcoin, which is what we're talking about today. And I want to explain why I make these videos, why it changes, and why I think it's really important to continue to make these videos. And I am going to talk about a couple things that have to do with crypto and some bigger macro events later in the video, but I want to go through this first. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification underneath the video to see future videos just like this one. Now, while you're down there, there is a link to Margex where you can trade cryptocurrency. As you can see here, Solana making a big move on the day. If you're someone that's bullish and you saw, well, Bitcoin was moving up and Solana moved down just slightly on the news of the network, but then it only moved a couple percent. Well, you might have seen that and thought, wow, maybe there's a big bullish move coming after this, after they fix it, because some people are maybe taking this opportunity to buy Solana on the dip. As you can see here, it did move up about 5% since the network went back online. So definitely check out the link underneath the video. They also give you a deposit bonus. There's also a link down there to HGAaccess, a Patreon group that I'm in with about 9 other influencers to give you information that you can't get anywhere else. Now, I've made a lot of videos in the past talking about why we should get to a certain amount of Bitcoin. And I saw this video by Brian Harrington today. I want to pick out some pieces that I thought were awesome. And I'll leave a link to the longer video. You can go subscribe to him. He's someone that I've known for years. I've worked with him for years. And he is probably the person that's been in Bitcoin the longest of anyone that I know that I've really talked to, interacted with. He's been more in Bitcoin than anyone I've known, as in like devoting his life, his brain, his money to Bitcoin. And he made this great video today, get to 0.21 Bitcoin. And I've talked to him about the videos that I make, about how you need to buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. You need to get to 0.002 Bitcoin, how much Bitcoin you need to retire, and breaking down some of these numbers. And honestly, he did a better job of explaining why these videos are important than I do. Watch this. We'll also talk about some things that are happening today and next week, and then we'll move on to some different stuff.
In 2015, I was searching about Bitcoin on YouTube, and it feels great 10 years later to be sharing about Bitcoin on YouTube, because I know the exact things that were helpful to me. And here's the exact thing that was helpful to me. These milestones, like these stacking milestones of stacking Bitcoin, were some of the earliest material that was easy to comprehend and easy to get kind of your feet under you when it comes to Bitcoin. And so this number, 21 million, like we know that there's 21 million Bitcoin, and that's what makes it so unique, is that there's a hard cap on it. Bitcoin is open source, verifiable money controlled by us, the users of the currency, unlike dollars, which are controlled by a small group of people, and the price to borrow them is set by a small group of people that's easily manipulated by the political process. That's the two worlds. That's the two worlds. And so because there's only 21 million, it's really easy to set your stacking goals. For this video, this goal of 0.21, the significance of that is that that's about $9,000. About $9,000 gets you 0.21 Bitcoin, okay? But let's put that in perspective. This $9,000, it's good. Like, that's a great chunk of money. It's a great chunk of money. Put it in a high yield savings account, right? For now, the high yield savings account for now, because that rate is always like going up and down or whatever. That feels good, right? But for most people, and depending on your circumstances, it doesn't exactly move the needle too much in any direction. It's a great cushion to have, super great cushion to have, super great emergency fund to have. But as far as like a wealth building thing, $9,000 in one account is kind of just only a building block towards something bigger, right? Now let's contrast that with 0.21 Bitcoin. 0.21 Bitcoin, when you divide 21 million by 0.21, you get 100 million. Only 100 million people could ever have 0.21 Bitcoin. Now again, let's make a comparison. The super, super rough numbers, there's about 56 million millionaires in the world. There's about 22 million millionaires in the United States, okay? So for $9,000 to be able to be in the top 100 million people in the world, which is still a lot of people, right? Like it's not like, it's still a lot of people. For $9,000, kind of just like a good, it's like simple emergency fund type number, to be in the top 100 million people in the world, that's significant. That's the leg up that Bitcoin can give you over saving in dollars. That's the kind of just material like that's super helpful when you're first trying to get your head around Bitcoin versus the dollar, and like, why is this a thing? Why will Bitcoin not die? And why do people constantly continue talking about it as this currency that is like growing and growing in popularity, especially when it comes to like the day-to-day usage barrier, right? Like, and that's the thing, is that from network effect perspective, the dollar is the biggest currency in the world with the most amount of day-to-day usage. Is there any percent chance in your head when you look into the future that a different currency will take over? If there is, that's why you should get to 0.21 Bitcoin. If there is, if there's any above 0% chance in your head that you think the world could operate on a different currency in the future, I do. Like, truly, probably the main difference between like quote unquote skeptics and believers or whatever, or Bitcoiners and dollar maximalists and Bitcoin maximalists, is if you think that the network effect of the dollar can be overcome. And I think it can. I think the network effect of the dollar will be overcome, and people that get to 0.21 Bitcoin will be in a great position to take advantage of that change of technology. There's another great video on YouTube called Everything Divided by 21 Million, and you can search for that video and go watch it. Definitely recommend it. And it goes into why people that stack Bitcoin early are in position to take advantage of this switching of the world from dollars onto Bitcoin. And this concept of everything divided by 21 million perfectly illustrates how dollars are infinite, Bitcoin is finite. Dollars are infinite, which, again, okay, wrap your head around that for a second, because that might be a little bit jarring. Dollars are infinite. The amount of dollars in the world are chosen by politicians and bankers.
Honestly, it comes down to the fact that early on, you start learning about Bitcoin, and I think of it as kind of like starting to exercise. Let's say you start weightlifting. If you are bench pressing, right? The first couple times, super fun. It's exciting. You maybe are sore, or you get up to new weights, but it gets kind of boring pretty fast. Like, yeah, there might be some new exercise that adds that you can do that can add some weight to the bar. But after some point, it just kind of is boring. So you play little games with yourself. You try to get to certain numbers. So maybe you're benching 95 pounds. Maybe your goal is 100 pounds. Now, it's kind of an arbitrary number. It's not like after you hit that, everything in the world is fixed. It's not like you're going to be so much stronger going from 95 to 100, or that it really changes anything. And for someone else, that might be like nothing to them. For someone else, it might be super heavy and they'll never get to that point. I kind of see stacking Bitcoin the same way. Like, eventually, after learning enough about Bitcoin, maybe it's kind of boring. Like, there's not a ton of news every day, but it's still fun to think about hitting certain goals, even if they're a bit arbitrary. That can help you along. And whether you're hitting 0.1 Bitcoin or 10 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoin, like, hitting those goals does help you. Thinking about those goals continues to help you pay attention, continues to help you stack Bitcoin. And the fact is, it wouldn't matter if Bitcoin was a crappy asset. Like, if it didn't perform well, then it wouldn't matter if we're buying more. It'd actually be a detriment if it wasn't an asset that performed well. But with the volatility, some people go off course. They forget to continue to stack Bitcoin, which is why I like making these videos. Now, that is a little bit of what Brian is saying in this video here. Now, again, show Brian some love. You can go check out his link underneath the video. You can follow his page there. I want to talk about a couple other big events that are happening here today. We have MicroStrategy actually announcing earnings after the bell here today, February 6th. So they're expected about 0.21 in EPS and 132 million. Now, this is like nothing compared to their stock price. If you actually look at MicroStrategy stock, it's $500. So it trades at a crazy price to earnings ratio because they have so much Bitcoin on their balance sheet that it's not really a company that you buy for the cash flows, yeah, that helps because they can buy some more Bitcoin with it, but you buy it because it's a Bitcoin proxy. We also have some big stuff happening next week. We have CPI, core CPI, and then we have a PPI as well. So that's some good inflation data that will influence what the market does and what we think is going to happen with interest rates in the future. I want to look at this chart. This is from Benjamin Cohen. Bitcoin ROI measured peak to peak. Now this green cycle is where we're at now. This is from peak 4 to peak 5. Just to be clear, when you pass 1, that is when you hit a new all-time high, or that's when you hit the previous all-time high. So you can see our ROI is still below 1. We're still below previous peaks. Typically it takes somewhere in this range, like maybe 1,100 days or so to hit the new all-time high. And we're at about 800 days. So based on the last 2 cycles, maybe it takes us another 9 months, maybe 10 months, right around the end of the year to hit this new all-time high. I'm not so sure that we take that long. It depends obviously on the economy, but we had a great year last year. I would not be surprised if Bitcoin moved up to new all-time highs before the end of the year, especially with a lot of people trying to front run the halving. But from there, it goes up pretty substantially. From peak 3 to 4, we went up to about 3x the prior peak, maybe 3.5. And it makes sense. We went from about 19,000 to 65,000 or 69,000. So that's about 3.5x. The time before that, though, we had like a 17x or something like that. Like, what was it? $1,400 to $19,000, something like that. So there is a huge range. Now, if we get up to the previous ROI peak, that means that we would be looking around a $200,000 plus Bitcoin, probably closer to a $230,000 Bitcoin, which is obviously really bullish. I think a lot of people would be very happy with that. New York Community Bank continues to fall down. Today, it's down 21%. Apparently, they met with, I think it was the FDIC or some group. They had talks with a regulator. Now, they've been down a lot over the last 5 days. They're down 32%. If you look at the last 1 month, though, they start falling January 30th. They're down 61%. And part of this was that they had a massive loss. They were one of the banks that took over some of Silicon Valley Bank's business. And instead of having a $250 million quarter in profit, they lost about that amount. Basically saying that they had not accounted for as much in losses or defaults as they expected. They had a lot of commercial real estate go bad, and they cut down their dividend. So this caused their stock to fall. And whenever something like this happens, usually there's a bit of a bank run. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of these smaller banks, which ends up killing them in the end anyways. And we also have that bank funding program being shut down as well, which hurts banks as well, because that was just basically a way for them to increase liquidity, make some extra money, that kind of stuff. So this may influence what the Fed does as well. They obviously want banking stability. Now, let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Let me know if you like these videos. I am going to continue making them because I know people like the videos talking about to get to a certain goal on Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency. But I want to hear feedback, because I did get a hard time recently when I made a video talking about why you should get to a certain amount of Bitcoin. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video. Check out the links to Margex and to HGAaccess and to Brian underneath the video. Bye.